Big week for us in the poker world, our version of March Madness. Nick, we have Daniel Negreanu taking on Phil Hellmuth. It's High Stakes Duel II. What do you think of as far as the magnitude of that matchup is concerned when you hear Hellmuth versus Negreanu?
Well, I'll be totally candid. I put typically heads-up poker into like its own special side category. I'm not saying it's not an important skill. Obviously, if you want to win a tournament, any tournament you win comes down to heads-up, but very rarely are the chip stacks equal at that point in time. And I know there are certain heads-up poker specialists, so maybe I'm minimizing it because it's not something I've ever really partaken in to any significant degree. But I've been surprised at how real this rivalry seems to have been and how seriously these two guys are taking it for two guys who, let's be honest, they're not playing for such a substantial amount of money that it's going to cause a big swing in their lives. But there seems to be a massive amount of pride on the line. And Phil Hellmuth seems to be really legitimately wounded at how he's viewed by some in the poker community. And especially, I feel like he caught a lot of flack for that Doug Polk hand. That was a big story a few weeks ago. And it seems like, I don't know, it seems like Phil is really, really, I don't want to, I just said wounded. I don't know, self-conscious? Is that fair? Sure. I don't know, Phil. I think it's very fair. Try to be rude, but about where his standing is or isn't in the historical pecking order.
As we take a look, Nick, at this specific matchup, you're familiar with fans in sports maybe overreacting to the result of one specific game. Do you get the sense that the public could overreact to one result in Hellmuth versus Negreanu tomorrow night?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's an inevitability, which is also why it is, shows no gamble, no future, and obviously these guys are gamblers. It is a very interesting gamble for each of these guys because I do not think that you are likely to get any actual actionable information on who's better between the two I'm not telling people not to watch. I'm going to watch. Everyone should watch. It's a terrible commercial I'm doing. But I don't think you're going to be able to do any type of reasoning like, oh, well, I went into it thinking Negreanu obviously was going to win, but Phil beat him. So now I have to totally reevaluate. I think it would have to be such an extended series in order to, you'd have to almost do something like, and I don't know if this is something that's, I don't know the poker community because I'm not there, if this is a sensitive subject, you'd have to almost do something like the old, Durr challenge. Like we're going to play 100,000 hands and then see where it's at, and you're not going to have that ability. So yeah, of course people are going to overreact. People always overreact to what just happened.
That's a great example that you just brought up, and it is a thing in poker. Danny Negreanu just played Doug Polk, 25,000 hands. It was a challenge where Doug Polk won $1.2 million at those stakes. It clearly showed his skill set. Negreanu was the first to admit, even after the fact, during the match at the beginning, Polk's a favorite. He's so good at heads-up poker. He should be a favorite. I should lose.
So that's a good example. So I'm just sorry to interrupt you. But and I don't. I should how about this blanket statement? I don't know any of these people. Every person I bring up, I'm like, I don't know him. I feel bad talking about someone I don't know. I obviously don't know Doug Polk. I don't, and I've seen his videos and stuff. I don't think he claims to be the world's greatest poker player. I think he might at one point, or maybe still have a claim, I am the world's greatest heads-up poker player. Like that's a specific thing that I think he had a claim to, and maybe still does. I just think it's when we compare it to sports, you almost have to cut it down to parts of the sport. Like we talked about Jordan, LeBron, the greatest basketball player ever. It's almost easier to be like, who's the greatest dribbler ever? Who's the greatest shooter ever? You know what I mean? Who's the greatest passer ever? That's, to me, more equivalent to a lot of these poker discussions.
It's very complex, and I think, you've nailed it. And we would all agree, especially poker fans. No one is going to say that Hellmuth is the greatest of all time when it comes to poker because of the complexities. So I want to go back to High Stakes Duel because I need Nick's thoughts on the match. Who's going to win? Negreanu, right now, roughly about minus 150. Hellmuth, about plus 140. If you had to pick round one matchup, who are you rooting for? Who do you think is going to take home High Stakes Duel?
I would bet Daniel. I think Daniel in this situation is clearly the favorite for a reason, and I think Daniel's the one far less likely to get in his own head or tilted about it. I think Daniel can walk. Like, I think just from what I've read, it seems like this maybe means a touch more to Phil than to Daniel. And maybe that works to his advantage. Maybe it makes him concentrate more. But it also could mean if he gets a little unlucky or a tough deck early, that it snowballs a bit. So I think the odds are about right. But if I had to bet one of those sides, I'd lay the 1.5 and bet Daniel.
There you have it.
Hey everyone, this is No Gamble, No Future. All the sports betting and Brent, really just all the pure degeneracy.
You gotta risk it to get the biscuit. Like and subscribe.
Please.